It was obvious to them, the devastation? So the IDF is totally in charge, it sounded, operationally.
Completely. The IDF get to dictate when we go in because they control access into Gaza.
So Tucker Carlson recently exposed Israel's IDF as a criminal entity in this new interview with Anthony Aguilar, a whistleblower who was part of the GHF, the aid organization in Gaza, distributing food, talking about the atrocities that he saw, the IDF's inhumane practices that led to large-scale killings, and what we've seen come out of that is turning a lot of Americans away from the Israel First mentality. So let's get his viewpoint on it in this conversation. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
So when all of our trucks get loaded, we can't go into Gaza proper from Karim Shalom until the IDF say it's okay. Sometimes they don't let us in.
You worked with the IDF on and off over your career. Because,
I have in various.
Yeah. What did you think of the IDF when you were in the army?
Overall, as holistically, not impressed. Now, there are some units within the IDF, within the Israeli Defense Force and with the Israeli Ministry of Defense that are good.
Yes.
Professional, good, best of the best.
Famous.
Writ large, not impressed.
Interesting.
And
Why?
not because necessarily that they're bad soldiers, but it's leadership, poor training, poor equipment. This idea that, and part of it is that when you think about the Israeli Defense Force, they're not the Israeli military structure doesn't call themselves an army or a navy or an air force. They're Israeli Defense Force. They defend Israel.
Yes.
They're not expeditionary. They're not like the United States Army that has to train to fight wars overseas. They defend within. And for the most part, they're fighting an enemy now at this point that are women and children and old men. It's not hard to defeat and annihilate an enemy when your enemy, the majority of them are under the age of 15.
Just think about that. The majority of the enemy of the IDF is under 15, and indeed half of Gaza was children, despite the fact that the U.S. and Israeli propaganda machine says, oh, it's these children's fault that they're dying there because they voted in Hamas, 18 years ago, or whatever it was when these children weren't even born. And half the people that weren't children didn't vote for Hamas, by the way. This is a nightmare scenario, and the IDF has used these aid stations as places to lure Palestinians in so that they have clean shots at them. It's sick. It's caused about 1,200 deaths. And even mainstream media sources have reported on it, not only in Israel, but also in the United States. If you think Israel's one big hive mind on it, just read Haaretz and you can see a different picture. And, this is something that gets in the news outside of the U.S. political zeitgeist, but our political class won't touch it. You know why? The Israel lobby. That's why. So thank you, Mr. Aguilar, for, telling the truth about this.
It's easy to shoot kids.
It's almost, you have to have a sense of cognitive dissonance to do it. You almost have to separate yourself from the situation, which is why I've said many of these contractors, if they have a conscience, which I think many of them do because they've served in the military and they know what right and wrong looks like, and in the IDF, that when that separation of that cognitive dissonance between your morals and what you're doing comes back to you as a human, it hits hard. And in the coming days and weeks, as Operation Gideon's Chariots has ended, and the Israeli army has to refit into this restructuring for occupation, which is a whole new ballgame. Occupational army, U.S. Army World War II, U.S. Army post-invasion of Iraq, that's when things get really nasty.
No kidding. The U.S. learned that over 20 years where they kept pouring billions of dollars into Iraq and in Afghanistan, by the way, both 20-plus year occupations. The U.S. still has, I think, about 1,000 soldiers in Iraq. It's a nightmare scenario. And then now the IDF is going to do that for the first time. And this isn't hyperbole. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has said the decision's already been made. We're going to occupy Gaza. And they've always foreshadowed this. This is part of the greater Israel project. The idea that Israel's borders will grow beyond what they are today. And it's not just in Gaza, it's also in the West Bank settlements. It's also them laying claim to parts of Syria and parts of Lebanon. It's one of the reasons why they goaded the United States into siding with Al-Qaeda in Syria against Assad. They wanted a destabilized, fragmented regime to be in place there, which it mostly is, under Jilani, by the way, a former leader of Al-Qaeda fighting U.S. forces in Iraq and then founding the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria, fighting against the U.S. forces. And that's what they're getting. They're expanding their borders, not only in Gaza, but in the West Bank. We all have to pay for it, and our politicians just continually justify it. And it's women and children being slaughtered predominantly in Gaza. And he's telling the truth. He's a whistleblower because they won't let journalists in so that we can get more truth.
That's when things get really gray. We think that things are complicated and complex now. Wait until you put an occupation army onto the streets of Gaza City.
So if you don't mind fleshing out the difference between what's going on now and a formal occupation.
So right now in the South, so consider if you're a combat force, infantry, armor, tanks, artillery. You're maneuvering against an enemy, or not. In this case, I didn't see many enemy out there. I didn't see any enemy out there. When you're an army of occupation, you then become static. You become routine. You become identifiable. That's when counterinsurgency often resonates the most, is that, so right now, if I were Hamas, while the active war is going on, the offensive, I'm laying low. I'm hiding. I'm going to come out and get killed. When the occupation begins, that's when the insurgency presents itself in armed violence.
Yeah, that's when you have permanent bases.
It's going to get
blown up,
violent, and it's going to get deadly. And more deadly. And if the United States doesn't set a firm tone of what's acceptable and what's not, no longer can we have this IDF, do what you will, and we'll play backup. No, we cannot. The president of the United States needs to set clear, firm expectations and boundaries with our ally.
Yeah, our ally, and that's said very loosely. I don't buy that Israel is in any way the ally of the United States. The U.S. is to Israel in terms of bankrolling all of its madness and the Greater Israel Project and this genocide in Gaza. But they're right. It's inevitable that under an occupational force, that's where you're going to see immense amounts of bloodshed, maybe far beyond what we've already seen, something like maybe 200,000, 300,000 people in Gaza dead. A lot missing that are presumed dead. It's hard to get a firm grasp of what the actual numbers are. But now they're going to just occupy Gaza and just take it over. It's just a concentration zone now that Ben-Gvir is calling it in Rafah, in the ruins that once were Rafah, I should say. And that's what we're getting. If the U.S. really wanted to end this slaughter, mass murder, genocide, whatever you want to call it, I don't really care what you want to call it. If they wanted to end it, just use leverage. Threaten to withdraw U.S. aid to Israel for once in our lifetimes. That's never happened, and it never will. And ostensibly, on paper, it would be the easiest imaginable thing to do. But it can't happen. And why? It's because of the Israel lobby. And thankfully, some people are willing to speak up against it, but that's the dynamic at play. They had their claws into our government and into our president, and he just pretends, hey, it's them doing this on their own. No, the U.S. is funding this madness, and it should stop.
Because this occupation, two things will happen. One, it's going to become extremely violent, grotesquely violent. Merkava tanks being blown up on the Salah ad-Din road going into Gaza. The Israelis won't like it. But then also, when forces begin to go into Gaza City and other people start to see the amount of starvation and destitute and destruction, it's going to bring the world to its knees. And it's not going to be a year from now. It's not going to be months from now. Days from now.
When the rest of the world sees what Gaza looks like, is that what you're saying?
Yes, because if you consider, so the Spaniards, the Jordanians, and the French have each gone in and dropped airdrop. Airdrop is ineffective because each aircraft you see flying over, pushing out bundles, that's only the equivalent of half of one truck. It's not much at all. Half of one truck only feeds a couple hundred people.
And just think about that. There used to be 400 aid distribution centers in Gaza. It's now reduced to 4, plus Israel has imposed a aid blockade for the last 3 months so that outside aid can't get in. So the GHF, which is corrupt and is luring these Palestinians out, some of which are killed by the IDF, and the Israeli government hasn't even denied it in every case because they have video of it. And that's what we're dealing with here. It's a deliberate starvation campaign. They've decided at the highest levels, it seems, to do this plan, to incentivize stampedes, incentivize mob mentalities and jumping over people for aid, just so that this can happen. Because there's no other reason around it. You could allow outside aid in and stop this blockade, but they won't do it. Why? Because it goes against the campaign that they've talked about so long. That these people are Amalek. That's what Netanyahu said. Essentially, a people unworthy to live that they're going to wipe out the entirety of. David Ben-Gurion wrote as much about the Greater Israel Project way back in the day during Israel's founding. They talked about the fact that Israel's borders would grow. That's what they're implementing now, and it's being bankrolled by the U.S. You have, Israel Katz talking about Rafah as a concentration zone. It's also sickening, but that's what's happening there.
One meal. Not to consider what hits the ground and explodes. Most of it doesn't make it to the ground safely. So, those airdrops were for show. For the first time in a long time, others besides the Israeli Defense Force Air Force have seen what Gaza looks like from above. And the Israeli government specifically said no media in the aircraft. But some of the crew on these aircraft, the Spaniards, the French, the Jordanians, saw that and went back to their governments and were like, this is beyond words. And I can attest to that.
Just from the air, it was obvious to them, the devastation?
So when they're conducting equipment drops, in this case, food pallet drops, it's at a lower altitude. It's not like it's from 10,000 feet in the air. It's like from a lower altitude, which you get a pretty good view of the ground from above. And the scale of devastation in Gaza, that not that I just, I'm not talking about someone that saw this from the outside or someone that saw pictures or someone that looked at a picture and assessed it. It was there, touched it, felt it.
Just think of that. The small number of foreigners that have gone into Gaza, many of them have gone back to their home governments and said, nothing that you've seen come out of Gaza is as extensive as the destruction I saw there. And you know what? The videos and pictures we do see that come out of Gaza look pretty darn destructive, by the way. Those things that leak out on TikTok, that social media platform they're trying to ban for this, by the way, not because of China, that shows some pretty bad devastation. It shows some pretty malnourished people and some pretty big massacres and violence. And you just can't justify it in any way. There's no way to defend this. I don't care if you're on the left or the right, or you're part of the political establishment, or you're a total dissident. There's no way to justify these atrocities against people that aren't part of Hamas, no matter how much they try to blame Hamas for everything. For 22 months of violence after October 7th, it's all Hamas. It's just absurd. You can't justify it.
Smelled it. And
what's it smell like?
So very, for those that have experienced it, the smell of death, human death, has a very unforgettable smell.
You mean like rotting bodies?
Rotting bodies, starvation, the body just breaking down. And when that's in mass, it's overwhelming. I smelled this same smell once in Baghdad during the 2006 timeframe, during the height of the sectarian violence, when Sunni and Shia were just slaughtering each other. And one of our jobs that we had to do during that time was, on our patrols, we would take a truck and a trailer and we would load bodies. Many veterans have done this. This is recorded history. We would load with the Iraqi army. We would go through neighborhoods and load bodies because they had just been slaughtered. Families slaughtered. That smell.
You did that?
In terms of picking up the bodies?
Yeah.
Yeah. That while in Baghdad in the height of sectarian violence during my very first deployment as a platoon leader, and many a veteran can attest to this because we had to do it. We would have to move through on our combat patrols. We would have to take Army trucks and trailers with Iraqi Army personnel to load up bodies.
And just think of that. That makes me wonder, how people can even live with themselves after this. And not that they did anything wrong, but they were exposed to this. You just wonder, why so many veterans off themselves, because of this. It's just so certain that these tragedies foster within the soldiers that partake in them, such resentment and hostility toward the situations that they're in. It's no wonder they do that. It's no wonder that there's so much PTSD. It's no wonder there's so many soldier suicides. It's because of the empire building schemes and our government sending them to do this. And then he was exposed to worse in Gaza, worse than that. The sectarian violence between Sunnis and Shia in 2006 that he was forced to be sent to by his superiors in, our criminal government, by the way, that was empire building in the Middle East. He was exposed to that, not through his fault, through our criminal government, and now it's worse in Gaza. The U.S. does not care about its soldiers, clearly. If it was concerned about our soldiers, our government, they would not send them in these types of locations for these kind of senseless aims and objectives. It doesn't make any sense.
There were so many. That smell is something you never forget. In Gaza, standing on the berm of site number 4, looking north to Gaza City. So if you're standing on site number 4 and you're looking south, you see Barish and you see everything to the south towards the Egyptian border. If you're standing on the northern berm, you're looking at Gaza City, the apocalypse. It's the only thing I can describe it as. Well, in the evening, when that coastal wind comes over the Mediterranean and sweeps through and that hits you in the face, it smells like death. And to that scale, mark my words, someone that's seen it, someone that's lived it, someone that's touched it, someone that's felt it. When the world gets a look at what's in Gaza City and Jabalia and southern Erez on the Gaza side of the border, the world will not tolerate it. So what I would say to every American leader, politics aside, put the politics aside. We need to be on the right side of history because our allies are close. Some of our, we say that Israel is one of our closest allies. Some of our closest allies, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, are all standing and we're not. That says something.
Yeah, man, what a sad tale. And I'm just so glad that there are people with the courage of Anthony Aguilar. It's not unlike what we saw from Julian Assange and Edward Snowden blowing the roof off U.S. war crimes in the surveillance state. Well, you have Anthony Aguilar here suffering, damage to his reputation, from people that are lunatics saying that, he's just doing this for his own ends. He was paid by Hamas. He fudged documents, all of which has been proven definitively not to be true. They even said, he wasn't actually in the field at these aid sites when he was, and he's proven that. He's showed that, a lot of the film and pictures that were taken that they've used for distribution purposes were actually taken directly by him. And the fact that they're attacking his family for this guy's a hero, man. This guy is a total hero. He deserves all of our praise for telling the truth about what he saw there when so many people are unwilling to do it. The mass media in the United States, legacy media, is afraid to do it. Or if they're not afraid, they're part of the cover-up because of what he calls the apocalypse in Gaza City. The apocalypse that the world will not accept. Just think of that. And a lot of the world has not accepted what's happened from the stuff that they've seen get out. So it's no wonder why Israel's trying to suppress people from going into Gaza if it truly is an apocalypse, as he says. And this guy was on the ground there, one of the few people that can report there. and can be assured to be, at least reputable in terms of their reporting because of the fact that they've stopped journalists from going in. And he's saying it's an apocalypse. And this is something that the U.S. is funding. People are turning their eyes, looking the other way. Some people are speaking up. Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, some dissidents on the left, are speaking up. I'm glad to hear that too. A lot of people are late in the game in this, but I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to welcome anyone that sees this as the atrocity as it is. Put politics aside. I'm with Aguilar on that. I don't care what your politics is. Be on the right side of the fact that genocide is wrong, no matter who's committing it, even if it's the Israeli government. We're not going to stop talking about it on this channel, but I'm just so glad that Tucker, gave this guy an opportunity to tell his read of the situation from being on the ground. I think Aguilar is a hero. He should be commended as a hero. Protect this man at all costs because they're trying to ruin this man right now, clearly. And you know what that means? It means he's telling the truth. If the Israel lobby and the Zionists and Netanyahu are all trying to unite to take him down, he's telling the truth. That's why they don't respond to falsities like that. So that's where we're at. Let me know down below. Do you think that there is a lot to what Aguilar is saying? What do you think the end game is here? Are they going to occupy and just take it over and wipe out the remaining Palestinians? Where will the Palestinians go, especially when they have such tight control over the borders? Let me know in the comments below. Like the video and please subscribe to the channel. I know it was a sad one, but please subscribe. Please also subscribe to Tucker. Thanks for this interview, man. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you'll be part of the Liberty Vault community. I'll graciously appreciate that. And as return of gratitude for that, I'll give you access to all of my videos before they go live on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.